I'd like to share a sticky story with you about putting a post-it note on your head, on your forehead. My name is Darren and you're at the home of Sticky Learning, MBM, Making Business Matter, trainers to the UK grocery industry. I used to work for one of the top 4 supermarkets in the head office. Worked there for many years, thoroughly enjoyed it. I had started as Deputy Assistant Cottage Cheese Buyer. I had reached the lofty heights of buying cottage cheese. That was my first job. That gave me a good understanding of buying, of supermarkets. And I guess I was always destined to go into that role because my father worked there for 40 years, my brother worked there, my uncle. It was almost the family business. I travelled 4 hours a day on the train, commute and tube and walk from where we lived in Oxford into Stamford Street, London. As I progressed through my career, various buying jobs, there was the big job that everyone looked for, the one just below the senior manager who reported to the director, and they called it C6. C6 was, I guess in nowadays terms, it was a senior buyer or a trading manager or a category manager. They were the sort of people who would look after the whole of fruit, and you could be responsible for buying £1 billion worth and a team of maybe 12 or more. I was a C5. I was looking to get my promotion. And for this promotion, what the company had put in play was that you had to pass a panel. And that panel was about gathering evidence in the 6 months to that panel and then presenting your case for why they thought and you thought you ought to be worthy of a C6, this role where there weren't that many in the business and it was a high profile role and only the best and most successful people would go forward. So my date was set. 6 months time, I think it was about November, and that would make it about May, so around my birthday. I'd been busy gathering evidence from people around me, asking the open question of what could I do better, what do I do well, and they would tell me some good stuff and some things I work on, and it was important to get the things that were good that I could share with the panel in 6 months, and it was also important to get the what could be better so I could show that I was developing and improving, and that was one of the key things that I needed to demonstrate, as well as of course I delivered the business KPIs and metrics. I built a very large lever arch file, one of those D things, D lever arch files, and I had evidence, projects I'd done, my team were behind me, how I changed, my personal development plan. I thought I'd had enough. Now, not everyone passes their panel and they get one more chance, one more opportunity to try it again a month later. I thought I was ready. I'd asked my boss, I'd taken him through my evidence, and so I was ready for my pitch to the panel. I didn't get it. And there wasn't a huge reason as to why I didn't get it. There was good evidence, there just wasn't enough, and I was okay with that. I hadn't majorly failed on any particular area, they just wanted a bit more convincing and given me a couple of pointers. And that was okay. The date was set for a month later. Could I go and find this, ask some people about that, get some more evidence here, prove a couple of things? Yes, of course I could do that. Now here's the moral of the story. I stood outside that meeting room and I could see inside the panel of 6 where I'd stood before. I had under my arm the lever arch file, and I thought I was ready. I'd answered the questions that had come up in the previous panel 4 weeks earlier, but there was an overriding thought that was going through my head. Last time you stood here and you went in, you failed. And what I hadn't realised then, but I realise now, having worked and trained with some very great trainers on soft skills, is that I had a word running through my head. I had a word, a metaphorical post-it note on my forehead with a word on it, and that was fail. Even though I had the evidence, even though I'd spent 4 weeks gathering it and answering all their questions and checking in with my boss, my overriding behaviour was fail. I'd walked in, and did that stuff really matter? Well, I know now that it does, and back then I didn't even understand that I had that word in my head. I walked in to the panel, post-it note metaphorically on my head, the word fail written on it. How did that affect my body language and my tone and my words? It did. Because I failed again. I know now that I need to put, when I go into those pressured, challenging, important situations, I need to write the post-it note for my head. I need to write the behaviour. So what would I have written on my head had I had my time again? Well, I did get an opportunity another 6 months later, which is a whole other story, and I passed. But what I would have written on my head is success or win. And when we train with suppliers and the account managers talk about negotiating with buyers, and we share the story of the post-it note on your forehead, and we actually get them to do it because it's a safe environment in the training room, they have subconsciously written on their head, fail, battered, and one guy wrote murdered, because they are going in knowing, believing that they are going to fail, get battered, get murdered, as one guy put it. And what if we change that language? What if we change that program, that script that runs through them? Will it change their behaviour? All the research says it will. And I know from 16 years plus of understanding this tool and the research behind it, it absolutely works. Because for those that don't believe it, I say to them, okay, I'm going to program you by talking with you for a few minutes before you go into a very challenging, pressured situation. I'm going to put fail in your mind. Is that okay? And they say, no, you can't do that. Well, why? Well, because I fail. Okay, so if that's true, then is the opposite true? Well, it could be, Darren. Well, what's the downside of trying it? Well, none. And then what we hear back later after the training in months to come from learners is, do you know that pink and fluffy stuff that some of you guys teach actually works? And it does. So my top practical tip is next time you go into something that is important, a buyer meeting, a presentation, somewhere where you might be promoted like I was, my question is, what word do you have on your head? This influencing technique is called word on head. When you practice, maybe just between you and the meeting room around you with no one in it, when you're practicing, have the post-it note with the word on your head and look in the mirror. How does that change your content, what you're going to say, your behaviour? Do you find you're more confident? And your tone? Because those things will change according to the script that's running through your head. So next time you go in, maybe go in with the win post-it note firmly stuck to your forehead. Thank you.